This is Unfilter, episode 244 for July 12th, 2017.
As a former prosecutor, my reaction was these emails are a textbook example and evidence of criminal intent. I can almost hear the closing argument of the jury using "I love it," repeating again and again, "I love it." Those three words are going to haunt Donald Trump Jr.
So right now, I want all of our Unfiltered viewers and listeners to stand up, stretch, yep, get that back part there, because, man, you're going to be in for the ride of your life this week. Welcome again to Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about news you shouldn't be watching. I'm Chase. There's Chris. Chris, past 3 days, I was off the grid. Literally, I was
Up in the mountains.
I was up in the North Cascades, which is, by the way, one of the beautiful national parks that we have in this world, in this United States. And I was there, had no reception, no nothing. I get back to civilization. And what happens on the day that I get back is a whole bunch of new emails, but this time...
Emails again. Are we doing this again?
Emails!
It feels like 2016 all over again, doesn't it?
Oh,
yeah,
man.
welcome back.
Oh,
I know. You see, I'm getting out of here. After this...
I envy you.
I got one more show tomorrow, and then I'm out. I'm in Montana.
Because you know, right now, you guys... I know a lot of you love our show, and we love doing this show. But there's something to be said about being able to unplug, kind of look at things from a distance, and just remember what life is about, right?
To go see Montana.
Yeah, I would like to see it.
Yeah, I would. I do like seeing it. I do.
would. I've seen it twice, and it's a very big state.
Speaking of nukes, our cyber this week, because we have so much to get to, but let's start with our cyber real quick.
ASL.
Just a couple of quick things here. Our cyber is all about the nukes this week.
U.S. officials say tonight they sent a bulletin warning of a series of cyber attacks beginning in May on companies that run a dozen U.S. nuclear power plants.
Can you stop for a
Yeah,
real quick
let's stop
second?
right here. Yeah, we got to.
What the hell? Why are these on the internet?
Well, okay.
Why?
We always say this. Now, let's break this
right,
down.
yeah.
So listen to what he actually says here in the beginning.
All right.
U.S. officials say tonight they sent a bulletin warning of a series of cyber attacks beginning in May on companies that run a dozen U.S. nuclear power plants.
So NBC News is on a mailing list, like a CERT kind of mailing list. Seriously, that's what
Yeah,
happened,
yeah,
right? And they
yeah.
sent out a thing saying, hey, this plant had some cyber activity. Like they're on, and so then they turn and make a story out of it. And you're right, because we've always said on the Unfilter show, you just unplug from the internet. Well, stay tuned.
Several U.S. intelligence officials tell NBC News Russian hackers are strongly suspected because the attacks resemble previous cyber intrusions known to have been carried out by the Russians on electrical grids in other countries.
Now, this the only other little bit that maybe they could have thrown in here right now is at this very moment, Russian plants are under a significant amount of attack and have been for weeks. So that's sort of interesting that they're also being attacked right now. Might be worth adding to the story.
Among the targets this time, U.S. officials say the Wolf Creek nuclear plant in Burlington, Kansas.
How much would you have crapped if that was somewhere near us, though? I mean, that would have been a thing, right?
Yeah.
The FBI and Homeland Security say the cyber attack appears to be limited to administrative and business networks, not plant controls.
Okay. All right. Now, this is interesting.
But
And
once
the
you get
company
into
sa-
their network, though, then you have access to those controls.
Well,
Says the intrusion had no impact on the plant because the targeted operational computer systems are completely separate from the corporate network.
what do we always say?
Oh,
What do we always... And you know what?
very good.
This is something whenever these
Nice.
stories go like, oh yeah, we were attacked, but it's no big deal. It's always comma because our systems were not connected to the internet. That's always what it is. That's
Yeah.
really the fix. It's so simple.
Security experts say the hacker's goal could be a threat of a blackout.
To send a message to say, back off, because we have the ability to strike you in the heart of your core systems.
So this expert is NBC's full-time security analyst who's literally paid to say whatever the narrative of the story needs him to say. That's actually his job. And what he's setting up here is a false story. So they go after, through some sort of quote-unquote cyber attack, the secretary's computer. They don't affect the control systems. They don't affect the plant in any meaningful way. They go after the secretary's computer, and they're able, with their expert to spin that into a cyber warning shot.
To send a message to say, back off, because we have the ability to strike you in the heart of your core systems, your networks that matter to your economy.
Except for what they're actually showing you here is they completely failed to penetrate the network in any meaningful way, didn't even take the place down for a day, didn't force staff to go home. Like this was less damaging than a ransomware attack when you have good backups.
Yeah.
Like this was a non-story. So if that's the scary message they're sending us, I don't really think we have anything to worry about.
Well, to be fair, you got to pay the guy, right? So sometimes you got to come up with a story.
You sure do.
To fit it.
He gets a full-time wage. So
what is that, $150,000 a year?
Oh, I would imagine at least. We don't really often see the other end of a cyber quote-unquote attack. You remember Petya, the ransomware that I just kind of made reference to?
Yep.
There was like a full-on SWAT raid of a Ukrainian software firm where they think the Petya ransomware came from. And there's not a lot of audio to this, but just imagine, Chase, you're just working at some IT business kind of company. It's a computer company.
Yep.
In this case, it's a software company.
Yep.
It's an office full of developers. Probably not everyone at the company's involved. Picture this scene. This is on a cell phone camera of a Ukrainian, or I don't know, I'm actually not sure if they're Ukrainian. It's in Ukraine, but service members. And they're rushing into the office building where the software company is. It's just regular people at their desk.
Wow.
Look at this with guns.
Wait, the Ukrainian military?
Yeah, to go get the cyber threat, where the cyber threat originated from. Here's the people that walk into a meeting. Could you imagine this, Chase? You're sitting here in a meeting and military service members with, look,
I would need to change my pants.
They got like laser sights. They got guns, dude. They got this is, look at this. They're walking all over this place. They're shouting at them. They're going through their desks, going through their server rooms. This is them in their server rooms.
Obviously, they have a cooling problem.
Look at that big fan. Look at that. Oh, they got to point it right.
Wait.
Isn't that classic?
Wait, that computer on the right, I think that's Vista.
Dude, I think that is Vista.
I think that's Vista.
That must be hooked up to something like a dedicated machine or something. And they got a bunch of shots of the hardware in here in this video.
That's the virus right there. That is the big virus.
You can see it right there.
Yep, I can see the light.
There's a better shot of the cooling fan. Oh man, they even took the front off the cooling fan.
They needed maximum.
They're not
cooling.
messing around. They took the protective grade off the front of the fan.
Oh jeez.
Oh man, and then they have
$100 bill bouquet.
Yeah, so got to get a shot of that.
Yeah, nice.
This has been edited together nicely. Look at that. So they're standing there with guns.
Wait, are they there just waiting for the vending machine, or
look how decked out they are.
Yeah.
For a software company, dude. Like, I don't think these nerds were. Look at that. Look at that.
Server stuck in a closet.
I don't think these nerds pose nearly this kind of risk.
Ah, there you go. There's the cable modem. Look at all the AC units on the windows. Wow.
So there you go.
Holy
So
crap.
that's the other end of the Petya attack is this raid from the Ukrainian army. You can find the full clip.
Get
in the
on the
show
ground.
Notes. Isn't that nuts?
Wow.
Whew. Okay, so Clapper was getting testified to your good friend,
My buddy.
Franken. Remember Al Franken when he was a radio host?
I remember Al Franken when he was on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Gosh darn it, people like me.
Yeah, well now he is he's asking James Clapper some questions. And man, if there's not one thing that is really is the phrase stuck in my craw. I don't want to still grind my gears. I know that's your thing. Is it like stuck in my craw? Is that the right phrase?
Yeah, like a thorn in your side.
It's not racist, right? Okay, you know what's been a real thorn in my side? Thank you. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Is this 17 intelligence agencies signed off on the Russian hacking?
You can't question that. It's 17.
17. How can you question 17 agencies?
Yeah.
Are you a conspiracy
What is
theorist?
wrong with you, Chris?
Now, so I'm the kind of person like when I know something to be true and the rest of the world is under the other the wrong impression, because obviously they're wrong. I want to help them understand, and so I read the report and I went through it. I'm like, okay, it's actually only 3 agencies, and one of them's not even fully confident. That would be the NSA, the most important one. I'm like, gosh, so it's not 17 at all. And so I went back through all our clips, and I found where the 17 number came from, and it was from a Clinton campaign manager, Robbie, whatever his name was. And I was like, oh, that's where the 17 came from. It came from Clinton. And then I'm like, so it's in this report it says 3, but this report came out in January? Whenever it was months ago, this report came out, and it's still to this day, literally to this day, 17 intelligence agencies colluded with confirmed that Russia colluded to affect the election. That's still the meme today.
Hearing today, we have the intelligence communities have concluded, all 17 of them.
He's even he's got like a little chuckle before he starts, because it's like, this is such obvious information that it's comical that we're even debating this.
Have concluded, all 17 of them, that Russia interfered with this election.
Look, he's smiling. He's laughing right now.
And we all know how that's right.
We all know that. That is fact. That's fact.
Senator, as I pointed out in my statement, Senator Franken, there were only 3 agencies.
That would be James Clapper, the director of intelligence at the time the report was created.
That directly involved in this assessment, plus my office.
But all 17 signed on to that.
Well, it turns out there's actually, so Al, I mean, he's only a senator, so he probably wouldn't know these things, but turns out there's actually only 16 intelligence agencies to begin with, you jackass. There's 16 intelligence agencies, you jackass. How do you not know that? And then second of all, the reason where the 17 number comes from is because if you include Clapper's office as an intelligence agency, that's how you get to 17, by rounding up to basically a bullshit number. His office does not run independent intelligence. They are a central coordinator of intelligence. They're part of the intelligence apparatus. They are not a separate intelligence agency. Correct. So there's 16 intelligence agencies. But the senator doesn't even know that.
But all 17 signed on to that.
Well, we didn't go through that process. This was a special situation because of the time limits and what I knew to be who could really contribute to this and the sensitivity of the information. We decided it was a conscious judgment to restrict it to those 3. I'm not aware of anyone who dissented or disagreed when it came out.
Okay, and
he goes on. In fact, we could play it, but he goes on to correct him on the 16 thing as well. That is huge because it was the DHS, which is a chicken shit cyber agency that has no credibility. They literally are just trying to get into it to make money.
Man, I don't have a big issue with DHS because it was formulated after 9/11.
I hate DHS with a deep passion.
They try to rope in all this national security under it.
Yeah, and they're see the thing, the behind the scenes that there's going to be books. There's going to be books. It created so much more jobs in the government that was just turned into this huge bureaucracy. And what naturally happens when something that large all of a sudden comes into that pond is there was immediate turf wars. Right. And they are still fighting turf wars. Yep. Jeh Johnson was an ineffectual leader because of these turf wars. They tried to be a player in the 2016 elections, and the states actually outright rejected their offers.
Well, they also rejected their offers based on their techniques. They were actually actively causing these intrusion detections.
So they're not a credible agency. Yeah. I'm sorry. And then
I have an issue too.
And then the NSA is like half on board, and then you have the CIA, which is the reason why I feel like the CIA is not as credible either. Although of course you could obviously argue that point, and I would say it's a very valid argument. But I believe they're not credible because they simply have an agenda in Syria.
They have skin in the game.
They have skin in the game, and their agenda in Syria and other places in the Middle East is influencing their decision on how to tip the scales. And Russia, for a very long time, for the CIA's legacy, has been the go-to boogeyman to tip scales in a certain way. So I'm not saying that is what happened, but I find the CIA to be not as credible in this situation. The NSA seems like, because they're more of the network people, they're looking at the crypto, they're watching the wire, they're watching communications. They seem like they would be the most legitimate agency out of all 3 agencies to believe if they say, yes, we're positive it was Russia that did XYZ. But they never even said that. They said they were, well, it's possible. It seems likely. We've seen some indicators. So I thought that was probably worth us just recapping as we're about to get into a whole bunch of Russia stuff. There's also another meme. We've got to hit back. We've got to punish Putin. I actually was watching this debate on CNN right before I came down here to do the show. We got to push back for Putin. We got to teach him a lesson. Your buddy Mike Morell was on CBS Morning News, said the same thing. We've really got to make sure that we teach him a lesson. We've got to push back. We've got to show him that we won't take this. We can't just take this lying down. Like Morell was really like all in on CBS Morning News. Yeah. And there's some that are saying, well, we've already done it.
Rudy Giuliani is an advisor to the president on cybersecurity, and he was asked in Poland this week why the U.S. hasn't punished Russia for interfering in the election. Listen to how he answered.
I do think we have taken action. I just don't think we've announced it.
Now, I wouldn't have played this except for he has, as like a buffoon, revealed other actual classified information in an interview, even this year.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we haven't taken some action. There was also reporting that Obama ordered some sort of implants to be installed throughout Russian networks in case we needed some sort of retaliation. I have it in the show notes from like an episode or two back. Who knows? Who knows? But the cyber war is upon us, as the chat room's been saying recently. All right, let's talk about let's talk about this big story. This is the one that we're kind of been.
So North Cascades, very pretty. There's a lake up there, and
huge. Did you sleep in a tent? Did you sleep in a cabin?
I slept in a tent. And
nice.
By the way, most underrated thing that you could ever bring with you that you need to bring.
Okay,
a hammock.
Oh, sure, man. Yeah. Did you bring one?
I had a hammock between two trees.
Nice.
It was just so nice. So anyway, what was the big story?
So I guess there were some emails back. In fact,
so Hillary. Cool.
No, actually, somebody else's emails this time.
Okay. Right.
Donald Trump Jr.'s. Yeah.
Oh, he gets email?
Yeah, I guess so.
Right.
So let's set the timeline here. This is June of 2016 that these emails are coming out. So to put that in some perspective, the first DNC emails started getting released in July. The FBI started getting involved in July. There was some early murmurs from WikiLeaks in June. But there wasn't really a lot behind it. We were still mostly talking about Hillary's emails and stuff like that. We hadn't really gotten to the new email leaks yet. So this is all kind of right before all that stuff broke. So it's kind of ironic that now here we are looking at email leaks. Of course, Donald Trump Jr. released these himself. But let's start at the very beginning.
The White House faced a new round of questions today over potential collusion between the Trump campaign and Russians during last year's election. Fresh off President Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin, it is another meeting in June of 2016 between Donald Trump Jr. and a Russian lawyer that's drawing fresh scrutiny. The Russian lawyer, known for her opposition to U.S. sanctions against Russia over human rights, said she had damaging information about Hillary Clinton. The White House on the defensive again today.
Now, that's not exactly true. She didn't say that she had information. A representative said that she had information. But let's not quibble about it because that doesn't really matter. This is a huge story. So these emails show that Donald Trump Jr. knew that there may be information against Hillary Clinton and, quote unquote, her involvement with the Russian government that they would like to supply to him. That was, I think let's just stop right there before we go any further about all of it. That was I think the biggest revelation we have had about any of this Russia investigation stuff since any of this has been a story. Agreed? I mean, this is
totally. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was kind of curious to see what the different reaction would be because my reaction was like, oh man, this is it. This is it. And of course, Chase's good buddy,
my friend
Adam Schiff, has a take.
Oh, Adam!
The evidence to say that this it is absolutely not only a breach of norms, but a breach of civic responsibility.
Now, I have, out of anybody that could have came out and said this, I have issue that is Adam Schiff. Woody Sheriff here he should have kept his mouth shut. He reveals his political slant and his motivation when he does this because he's supposed to be the ranking member of the investigation panel.
Yep.
He's supposed to be top cop. And he's coming out and pronouncing guilty before the investigations even happen.
Yeah, and I have a problem with anybody that does this, no matter who it is.
If it was Nunes out there, I don't know. I would be saying this. It's the same thing. It's like you're showing that you've already decided before you've had the investigation. Right. And I played him. The reason why I'm playing him now is because I also played him when the manifesto came out, the bed pissing manifesto.
Yep.
He came out and immediately he was the first Democrat out, and he just read pieces of the manifesto in a press conference like a jerk, and basically said, "Well, here's our proof," without quite saying that. Now we fast forward to the next scandal, and he's doing it again, and it's just he could have a minion of his do it. He could have somebody on his staff do it. I don't understand why it has to be him. And the only thing I can come to is he wants his face to be the face of this investigation because this investigation is super important to Adam Schiff's political career. This is the most important moment of this otherwise lackluster guy's political career. Yeah. And if this goes the right way, think about this. Think about if this somehow led to impeachment or a total restructuring even of the Trump White House.
The cabinet, yeah.
Yeah. You think about the political power he would hold in the Democratic Party, which is otherwise shifting around like crazy right now.
And that's the part that I guess I don't understand. I mean, we understand that, yeah, he just couldn't hold it back enough. Like, he just had to just put it out there. But if that's true, if like he's got a lot to gain, he could have just taken the really slow road on this and just say, you know what, hey, we need to.
That's what I think.
And I think he would come out even farther ahead.
Like, allow the spoils of being patient to just arrive at your doorstep.
Because what he's doing, he's playing directly into the narrative of the Trump campaign.
This is a political witch hunt.
That, you know, they're coming after me. Look, not all the data's out there, and you're coming straight after me. I mean, come on, Adam.
He says this is a violation of an oath of citizenship.
Now, I know we have people probably yelling at us right now through this and saying, well, of course, look what happened. Look at the emails. Look at the emails.
Okay, so I think we could at least take, and I think we will take at least 3 tracks on this because, and there's probably more, but I think like we have what does this reveal to talk about, and is there real collusion here? We have, was this legal or not? And we also have the moral question, I think, about opposition research too.
That's pretty good.
So I think so let's cover the contents of the email. I apologize. I'm going to play a little Hannity here, but he does a good job of just covering the contents of the email, which I think would help for context.
Was this the no spin zone of Hannity, or
the no spin zone is gone?
I know.
Actually, I think he's podcasting now, right?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
All right. So earlier today, after the New York Times started reporting on the content of email exchanges prior to this meeting at Trump Tower, Donald Trump Jr. released what he says is the entire email chain. Now, contact was initiated by Rob Goldstone. He's a music publicist who represents a Russian pop star who knows the Trump family.
He also was a judge on like the Miss Universe or whatever it is, the big pageant that Trump had in Moscow.
They brought it there, yep.
And during that time, they became friends with a pop star, and they've stayed in contact. It's weird.
From the 2013 Miss Universe pageant that took place in Moscow. Then on June 3rd, 2016, Goldstone emailed Donald Trump Jr., quote, "Good morning, Emin," the Russian pop star, "just called and asked me to contact you with something very interesting. The Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with his father, Aris, this morning, and in their meeting offered to provide the Trump campaign with some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father."
So Rob is saying that the pop star's father got information from a high-level Russian official.
Right. So from the Russian government
to the father,
to the
pop star, via Rob to Donald Trump Jr. is the idea.
Right.
Or I guess via this lawyer, actually. We haven't gotten to her yet. We're about to get to her.
Yeah.
This is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump.
Now, that's a key phrase we'll be coming back to.
Helped along by Aris and Emin. So what do you think is the best way to handle this information, and would you be able to speak to Emin about it directly? I can also send this information to your father via Rona, but it's ultra sensitive, so wanted to send to you first. Best, Bob Goldstone. About 20 minutes later, Donald Trump Jr. replied, quote, "Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. I am on the road at the moment, but perhaps I just speak to Emin first. Seems we have some time, and if it's what you say, I love it, especially later in the summer. Could we do a call first thing next week?"
Later in the summer, because the
campaign will be spinning up.
Yeah, closer to October, the better.
"When I am back, best, Don." And in following emails, the two go back and forth about setting up that phone call, and then they eventually work out a time for a sit-down meeting with this Russian lawyer. Now, Donald Trump Jr. also released a statement earlier today explaining that he was releasing the emails to be transparent. He also
I have a side question. I have a side question about that. Mm-hmm. If you're being transparent, you don't wait for the New York Times. You don't wait for the New York Times to publish the emails,
in his
right?
interview with Hannity, they were there. He says that what did he say? That he had basically forgotten about it because it was. So his version of the story is they go in there expecting to get dirt. He's kind of actually honest about this part. He says, we go in there expecting to get dirt about Hillary Clinton. We sit down and this Russian lawyer starts talking to us about how the sanctions are screwing over this thing. And basically by the first 10 minutes, he walks out. Manafort jumps on his phone, starts ignoring her. And in fact, the gal felt slighted about the thing. She says in her interview with NBC, which we'll play part of. And I'm left with an impression of like they got cocky and just jumped in there and and they claim this conversation was like, they're not denying that they did it. What they're saying is we did it and we didn't get anything out of it. Like we did it and we fucked it up. But since we fucked it up, it doesn't matter, right? Because it didn't work out. And that's sort of the argument.
See, and you know what? That's what I'm feeling on it too. The additional thing that I feel on it is at this point, there's a campaign happening. There's an active campaign. And instead of going to the FBI and saying, hey, we have this guy saying he's got information from the Russian government. And I don't care on this. Right now, I'm looking at this not as a political thing. I'm just looking at this a procedural thing. You have an outside government, which is against the law to receive things of value, like information like this that you could release maybe in October, right?
So it's interesting. Okay, so what do you think? Does it matter if when it starts, like when they talk about the lawyer, which we should talk more about here in a second?
The moment he mentions
the Russian government,
that is full stop right there. He should not be responding and go, let's talk about it. No, you need to stop now.
Yeah, and love it. Love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so I agree. Because it seems like if you are even tangentially acknowledging that you're working with the Russian government, then you are opening up the possibility for a foreign power to have some influence over our election. And so it seems like they could have him on that. It doesn't. But now I want to talk. Now I want to. I don't think we can go further without talking about the lawyer.
President Trump and his representatives denied for months that there was any link between Russia and the Trump campaign. But now, Donald Trump Jr. confirmed he and other campaign officials met with a Russian lawyer who said she had information that could damage Hillary Clinton.
Trump Jr., his brother-in-law Jared Kushner, and campaign chairman Paul Manafort met at Trump Tower in June of last year with attorney Natalia Veselnitsia.
Now, what's interesting about this is the meeting's set up with her, and at first she's a Russian attorney in the emails, and then at one point towards the end of the email chain, Rob starts referring to her as a Russian government attorney. Which has set off a whole bunch of speculation that maybe she has connections with Putin, that she was directly representing the interests of the Russian government, that perhaps she should have been registered here in the U.S. as a state affairs person, and it starts spinning out of control pretty fast. And NBC really jumped in with the first exclusive interview with the lawyer, and it sort of changes the entire story.
Tonight, we showed Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya the emails Donald Trump Jr. released. Emails where she's described as a Russian government attorney and part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump.
So these are phrases that get worked into later parts of the chain. We have it all linked in the show notes.
Here, Donald Trump Jr. is told that they want to schedule a meeting with him and the Russian government attorney who is flying over from Moscow. The Russian government attorney. That means you.
Yeah, at least no.
So she flew over for the meeting.
I'm certainly flattered by being marked and called as a government attorney, but I have never worked for the government in the first place.
She says that meeting with Donald Trump Jr., Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and campaign chairman Paul Manafort was arranged by Russian pop star Emin Agalarov and publicist Rob Goldstone.
So Goldstone is an interesting fellow, and I have some information linked about him in the show notes, but we don't really need to spend a lot of time on him. I want to talk more about the lawyer for a second. So she flies in for this meeting. You know what's interesting about that fact? About the fact that she flew in for that meeting?
What's that?
She wasn't supposed to be in the U.S. She had her passport expire in January of 2016.
So how the hell did she get here?
Absolutely. So, Senator, just to recap, the Russian lawyer was denied a visa to come into the United States, but suddenly magically almost, she got permission to come to the country to have that meeting.
So yeah, I'm sorry, her visa. So her visa expires in January 2016, yet she's able to fly in June. And there's some people like this guy, Grassley, who want to do some questioning that think that maybe somebody higher up in the administration might have pulled a few strings to make sure she arrived.
What are you suggesting? What do you think might have happened? Keep in mind, at that time, Barack Obama was still president of the United States, and he had his people at the Department of Homeland Security and whatnot.
He is, by the way, on the panel of the same panel that we just played that Frank was on earlier. They're all on that investigation panel.
Yeah, well, that's what I hope to find out, because it was in the previous administration. If there had been enforcements of the immigration laws, she wouldn't have been in the country.
So it seems like there was some sort of special privilege or grant given to her. There is also apparently some connections between her and a company called Fusion GPS. Now, you might remember Fusion GPS because in Comey's testimony, he went into tons of detail about them.
The chairman mentioned that Fusion, are you familiar with Fusion?
I know the name.
Okay. Are they part of the Russian intelligence apparatus?
There is several links in the show notes that suggest that Fusion may be connected to Russian intelligence directly.
I can't say.
Okay. Do you agree with me that if Fusion was involved in preparing a dossier against Donald Trump?
I'm sorry, what?
How was it?
What was that? I'm sorry. Fusion was involved with what?
Me that if Fusion was involved in preparing a dossier against Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's right. The same people that were involved in creating that bed-pissing dossier are the same people that helped connect this Russian lawyer to Rob and get her over here into the States. The same people that the Jeb Bush campaign initially hired to do opposition research against Donald Trump. When it became clear that Donald Trump was going to be the front-running Republican candidate, the Hillary Clinton campaign began paying him. And Fusion GPS, a company that is potentially connected to the Russian intelligence.
That would be interfering in our election by the Russians.
I don't want to say.
You know why he doesn't want to say? Because there's an investigation and he can't talk about it because that is something they're actively investigating right now. So this is a really thick story because we have potentially the same people behind the Trump dossier somehow tangentially connected to this Russian lawyer. And when you look at all of these things, it does look like a bit of a setup. Like maybe they somehow got this guy over there, particularly because here's something else. I've read the dossier. We have linked it in the past. You can find it online. The meeting is in the dossier, and the documentation, the memo of that meeting taking place is the justification that they use to bring it to John McCain and that he uses it to bring it to the FBI. I know this is hard to follow, but what I'm saying is that there is actually a thread from the very beginning of this Russia investigation when John McCain brought the dossier to the FBI, and then they used the context of this meeting potentially as justification to get a FISA request because they had right there that they had a meeting, a documented memo that they had a meeting, which did take place at Trump Tower, which then granted them FISA requests to then monitor the Trump campaign, which begins this entire Russia story from the very start. All of the collusion stuff where they start monitoring Manafort and they, what's his name? The guy that they had to run out of Trump's administration.
Oh, Kushner?
No. Not yet. They're still trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
The general, I can't remember his name right now.
Oh, Flynn.
Flynn, thank you. Flynn. That's how they got Flynn, was because of the ancillary collection from the FISA monitoring. It's all connected. It's crazy. It's all connected. It all comes back to Fusion GPS, which is astounding. And if Fusion GPS is connected to the Russian intelligence and the Hillary Clinton campaign was paying them for this dossier, then both the Jeb Bush campaign and the Clinton campaign paid Russian operatives, which would sound a lot like collusion. It's incredible. It's incredible. But it doesn't change the details and the facts of the emails, which could still screw Donald Jr.
Donald Trump Jr.'s emails are raising legal questions about his meeting with the Russian attorney. That meeting also included the president's then campaign manager, Paul Manafort, and his current senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Some legal experts are pointing out that federal law makes it or declares that it is a crime for a foreigner to give money or something or some other thing of value, as it's written.
So the thing is the hypothesis which I have just laid out actually fits into this perfectly. So if this was some form of setup, either they convince a stupid pop star who looks like a real idiot by watching some of his videos before the show, or maybe they somehow paid Rob off, who seems to be like a real piece of crap character. Somehow they get these guys to go to a meeting, and from the very beginning, they make sure to put a few key phrases in there, like the support of the Russian government and the Russian government attorney. Make sure that's in there intentionally, and then make sure you hold on to these emails. It's perfect because it shows that if he accepts those emails, that Donald Trump Jr. was accepting work from the Russian government. Right? So it illustrates that even if it was bogus and entrapment, it still shows willingness to take information from the Russian government.
Right.
It's sort of like when the FBI entraps somebody for trying to blow up the federal building when they're the ones that gave them the inert bombs. It's kind of that, and he's still caught. He's still guilty.
In connection with the U.S. election, federal law also states the following. No person shall knowingly solicit.
Oh, I guess Crown Prosecutor isn't a Russian government official.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. It doesn't matter because you're receiving this email, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Don Jr. is going, oh, that's not a real office, I'm going to continue down this path?
No, I think he's thinking, oh man, I
got some info.
Here's what he said in the interview. He's like, I've heard some stories about Hillary that don't get a lot of coverage in the mainstream media, and I thought maybe I was going to go find out about some of that. Right. And I believe it, because I would think that if somebody emailed me and said, hey, I'd like to give you some real dirt, and I knew them because he knows this guy because they let him screw some of the Miss Universe.
But let me add on to that one more layer. If it said, yeah, Chris, I got some information from the Crown Prosecutor of Russia, you're going to think this is official information.
It means it's good stuff.
Right. You're not going to, and that's the part that I think I'm still having a trip up over, is at that point, you don't go any farther. You just don't.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if it's fake.
Right. I mean, morally, it should be country before party.
Well, it's not just morally. I think there's a legality there. And maybe there's going to be a technicality where they go, well, it wasn't a real official government office. That's great and all.
Or if because there was no exchange of goods, there was no quote unquote type of payment.
Right, and but does that make you feel good as anybody knowing that this is happening?
It makes me think two things. If Hillary Clinton was elected, we'd never have known about any of this stuff.
True.
That's fascinating to think about.
That's very true.
And then number two, I don't know where to draw the line, because there is the idealist in me who says this is bad and it's morally wrong. You should be country before party. Legally, it's wrong. But then there is the pragmatist that's been sitting in this chair for weeks now. And I got to say, this doesn't sound any more awful than Donna Brazile defending leaking questions to Hillary Clinton because we want to win. We want to win, quote unquote. Yeah, I did it, quote unquote. We want to win. So it seems like morality, I don't think morality has been at play since you or I have been alive. To be honest, I think it went out the window long before then. So the pragmatist in me doesn't know where to draw the line, to be honest, because if the Clinton campaign and the Jeb campaign have been paying into Fusion GPS and this Steele character who are connected to the Russian government, then they have also been collaborating of the worst kind, and that would just seem to be the norm then.
Yeah.
Because the Trump campaign, while they failed, did try to collaborate, and they hoped for collusion. They just sucked at it. And the Clinton campaign worked through an apparatus like Fusion GPS to hire opposition research. It seems like it's just a different type of collusion. Because the other thing is, like, Fusion GPS also has British MI5 officials in it, like, so that you could say that government isn't trying to influence. Like, the rabbit hole goes really deep here. So the pragmatist in me does not know, legitimately does not know how to answer your question. So then I sort of fall back on the morality and say, well, it was morally wrong. It was a wrong thing to do morally.
Yeah, and this is the part where you see the Trump administration and you see, Don Jr. going on, Fox, Hannity, trying to feel this friendly bump. But at the same time, we're not really digging into it, is that he only shared these emails and started talking about it after the New York Times reported it from the get-go, right? And this thing already happened.
So why do you think is that significant? Because it shows that he did have a meeting and lied about it?
Yeah. And that's the part that bugs me too.
So what qualifies so here's where I quibble is I think that Russian lawyer doesn't have anything to do with the Russian government.
Right.
So it's not it's he went and basically met with an activist lawyer who's been pestering him for a while.
Yeah.
And she figured out a way to get in front of his face. I think the whole thing was just to set up the optics of it, to be honest with you. And then his poor choices and his greed, and also if you keep it,
here's
one
a
other
little
thing,
dark angle.
one other thing,
All right.
which is one more thing.
Yeah.
Remember, again, this is pre-Russia hysteria.
That's right. Yeah.
So he's not necessarily thinking everything Russia is toxic.
What?
And okay, sorry. I know.
Okay.
And then also, at this point, everybody thought Hillary was going to win for sure. I think even they thought that.
Well, at the time, and I think even Don Jr. mentioned it in the interview with Hannity, that there was a possibility that it could have been a contested convention on the Republican side. There was a lot of fluidity going on. But not to get too conspiracy baconish or having a weird thought, but what if this was intentionally set up this way to kind of bait Don Jr. in, and this was like a Russian insurance policy, if you will? Like they knew the laws, right? And then the meeting happened. Nothing came out of it, right? It was a total blow up in their face, waste of time, as Don Jr. was. I'm paraphrasing what he said during the interview. But what if this was just kind of held there?
If you look at the timing of this release, don't you think it's interesting?
Why is it being released today? Like, why?
So Trump has his successful meeting with Putin. They announce a ceasefire in Syria. I feel like the timing of this release is sort of meant to sort of take him down a peg during some good news. Like you get a bump that you've just had a successful ceasefire in Syria that actually seems to be sticking. So then, oh, boom, here's this huge release.
Yeah.
So I'm more cynical about it, and I think it's more sabotage in a sense because he met with a private citizen, and these guys do meet with a lot of people, and publicists always overpromise, but it's always, you're probably, if I'm him, I'm willing to go in there and hear what this person says.
Well, especially after the leadoff. I mean, look at that leadoff.
Yeah, there's so much speculation because you could also speculate, well, what happens if he got information that was clearly damaging to national security? What would he have done? Maybe he would have gone to the FBI. We don't know.
Right.
So but what seems to be obvious is he got trapped one way or the other, either because he's stupid or because he was intentionally trapped and he just fell for it because he's greedy.
It could be both of those things. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I was reading about this. I forgot where I got it from, but during the Bush Gore situation, the Gore campaign, they found some sort of book or dossier that just so happened to land on their doorstep that had containing information about the Bush campaign, and they reported it directly to the FBI, like right away. Like they weren't even taking any chances. And now you have a family like Trump.
Remember Trump's taxes? Somebody just dropped it off in a mailbox?
Yeah, just dropped them off anonymously. And it's one of those situations where they are being the not atypical political family. This is a financial family that has gotten into politics.
Yeah, but you look at Joe Biden's son over there, and you look at the way Cheney profited from Halliburton. I think that's a system, dude.
Well, definitely.
And now Barry's got a foundation.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. But in this situation, was it just too much greed? What's the play here? Because after all, at the end of the day, they won, but there is some really underhanded stuff happening in this on both sides.
Shows some intent to at least get information from a foreign power.
So are we going to talk about? I don't know if you have the clip on it, but
give it to me. What do you got?
I was going to say, like, with the whole Trump didn't know about this at all.
I didn't know them. No, but I do have the.
But there's a correlation to the fact that the day of or the day after that email took place, Trump went out and announced that we're going to have some big information to share about Hillary next week.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that, but I have the video of them. The video of them. Hanging out here.
Yeah, but it was like. And Trump's, he was like, oh, my dad didn't know anything or anything like that. And then the meeting happened one floor below where Trump's office is in the tower. So, what did who know what and when?
Okay, so while you're talking about things that are weird like that, so this lawyer that somehow gets in to the U.S. to have this meeting, then the next day after the meeting is at an event with the U.S. ambassador to Russia who was appointed by Obama. at an event she's pictured with. She's not even legally allowed to be in the U.S. She's some lawyer, but then all of a sudden she's at some big Democratic event, like the next day, photographed next to this guy.
Right.
And again, I go back to, they're all connected back to this dossier, which is the very justification that kicked this entire damn thing off, which was then completely disproven, resoundingly rejected by Comey in his testimony. And even Steele, the author, came out and said, well, yeah, I actually wasn't allowed to travel to Russia, so all the information from Russia was from hired sources that I paid. So he paid people to give him stories, and then he was paid by the size of the dossier, and he admits that half the stuff in there is unverified. Probably like the bed pissing stuff. So this dossier is at the heart, again, of all of this, even if it's remotely connected. And then you have players like Adam Schiff trying to make his move. You have guys like Donald Trump Jr. trying to play transparent now after the fact and going on Hannity. You have Hannity, who's the personal spokesperson of the White House. It's just, it's a complete dumpster fire. And it shows that there was corruption on both sides.
And you know what bothers me, I guess, about the whole situation is, you see these kind of things that are just blatantly bad. I mean, it doesn't look good no matter how you spin it. And the excuse that you usually hear as a response is, well, Hillary did it. Or let's go back further. Well, Bill did it. Let's go back further. Well, George did it. Well, let's go back further. Well, Reagan did it. What bothers me is the reasoning that supporters will give is, well, the other guy did it, so our guys can do it too.
Yeah, because it's precedence, I guess.
Right. And I just wonder, well, what about the act at hand? Well, I mean,
what about the morals of it?
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Like the legality and the morals.
That's why the practical version of me gets hung up on it, so I have to fall back to the moral version of it. Because here's what happens. Here's what happens if you don't do this. If you don't take the meeting with the Russian lawyer, if you don't hire the dossier guy, if you don't put your server in your basement, then you are a loser. Because look at Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is going to go down in history as the guy that said, I'm sick and tired of hearing about her damn emails. Once you play nice, you lose. Doesn't matter how popular you are with the people.
Nice guys finish last.
The political system crushes the nice guy. And it's the players that have people on their team like Debbie Wasserman Schultz or Donna Brazile or Manafort or your children or Kushner, like these people that are super tight operatives that work close to you. If you don't have your gang of thugs that help you do this stuff, you lose. And that's why Gary's going to lose again. That's why if Bernie tries to run again, unless there's something that changes and shifts in a massive way, if you're the nice guy and you're not corrupt, you lose. And Bernie Sanders, I think, is the living proof of that. It doesn't matter how popular you are. If you don't play if you don't play the dirty game, you lose. Right. Sick. It's gross.
Well, the problem I think, though, Bernie unfortunately had is he was up against the biggest machine there is, or one of the biggest machines that there is. And there was nothing stopping Hillary from getting the nomination, especially after her campaign against Obama. And once that plan was put into place, it didn't matter if Bernie had more dirt than anybody, it wouldn't have mattered. Because we've already covered how much money is involved with the foundation and, her buddy with all these people.
I wonder if Bernie had won, if the CIA would still be freaking out. Because Bernie probably wonder what he'd want to do in Syria. I wonder how they'd be freaking out about that right now.
Yeah.
They were probably never concerned.
No.
And they probably thought they were going to get jabbed, too. They probably weren't concerned then either.
No, and that's where, I came up with the name of a podcast in my head over my weekend that I was up there. It was called, the New Civil War, red versus blue, because I think this is by design. This is what the whole point is, right? To get us so wrapped up and so polarized and talking about morals and legality. Meanwhile, there are things happening underneath our noses that we're not even paying attention to. It's another big distraction, and at the end of the day, there's North Korea here launching missiles. There are things that are really happening.
Yeah, I try to, once we get through the main show, stay tuned to the overtime. We'll pick up a lot of that stuff in the overtime, like North Korea or the situation in Syria.
Yeah.
All that stuff. We'll pick that up in the overtime. Why don't we do a little G20 coverage?
Oh, yeah.
We teased it last week. We had this is sort of our ramp out of all of this stuff. Let's just cover the Trump-Putin meeting a little bit, some of that stuff, just to sort of start clearing our minds and moving out. This moment is actually kind of funny. That's why I left it in here. They're collectively making fun of the press right now. Like they're pointing at, look at these animals, look at these jerks.
Look at these idiots.
I thought that was kind of a funny moment. So they met in a private room for over 2 hours, and it was actually kind of a big deal.
Savannah, good evening to you. This may have been the most important diplomatic meeting yet for President Trump, formally face-to-face for the first time with the leader of the country accused of meddling in our election. And that was topic number one for the U.S., with two different stories tonight on how that discussion went. The world watching to see where this relationship goes next.
Watching, Chase, the whole world.
In front of the cameras, every move scrutinized.
It's an honor to be with you.
Behind closed doors, every word. With President Trump starting talks by pressing President Putin on Russia's interference in our election.
The president opened the meeting with President Putin by raising the concerns of the American people regarding Russian interference in the.
I'm sure they talked about it a whole lot. I bet it was but actually the thing that did kind of come out is they talk about how they tried to send the first lady in to break him up because it was going on too long, but there was some good progress on Syria.
So engaged, neither one of them wanted to stop, according to Tillerson, who described the positive chemistry. For most of the meeting, the two talked Syria. The U.S. announcing a ceasefire set to start Sunday, framed as the first indication both countries can work together there.
That's actually already in place right now because it was last Sunday. We'll talk about it more in the overtime. So he does his big Putin meeting. We don't know if he's revealed any huge secrets like everybody was worried about, but we do seem to have a ceasefire in Syria, which is sticking so far. There's also this weird cyber unit stuff.
Oh, we saw the tweets.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, sir.
The first Trump-Putin face-to-face was the meeting watched around the world. What exactly was said inside the private marathon 2-hour-plus discussion, though, remains under serious debate, even apparently by the president himself in tweets. On Sunday, Putin and I discussed forming an impenetrable cybersecurity unit.
Damn, that sounds, I don't even know what the hell that's supposed to mean.
What would a logo for that look like?
Jeez, dude. Like a bear and an eagle. Right?
Oh my, wait, the eagle on top of the bear?
Or a bear with wings? Eagle wings? I don't know. So anyways.
And Putin with no shirt.
So he tweets about this impenetrable cybersecurity unit, which is, I'm sorry, it's a funny thing for him to even say. But anyways, then he retracts.
It's impenetrable.
Himself in tweets. On Sunday, Putin and I discussed forming an impenetrable cybersecurity unit so that election hacking and many other negative things.
Election hacking
let me translate.
And many other negative things.
Many bad things.
But you know how he writes, because of the way he writes, so he says, so that election hacking, and many other negative things will be guarded.
Guarded, ...
Will be guarded and safe.
But it's kind of it's almost like saying, so that way election hacking will be safe. Is almost what is actually how it reads. We're going to form a security unit so that election hacking and other negative things will be guarded.
Let me hold it here.
He's guarding negative things.
Let me hold it here for a minute. Didn't Trump for the longest time deny that there was any kind of hacking?
But then recently he has been like, there was probably some hacking.
Okay, and now he's full out admitting it with this tweet.
Well, he's saying so that things like election hacking, yeah.
No. So that election hacking and many other things will be guarded. So he's implying by this tweet
that there's election hacking.
Election hacking happened.
But he's already been saying that.
Well, at first he wasn't.
Right.
He said that it didn't happen at all. Then he came out in a minute, and now he's like, we're going to do something about it with the country that is supposedly hacking our election?
When he first started saying there's been no hacking, really the conversation was about the DNC. Now when you say hack the election, what does that mean? Does that mean... What does it mean? Does it mean fishing Podesta? Does it mean...
Yeah, what does that mean? You're right. Yeah. What's it mean exactly?
But we say it all the time.
I know.
Well, the Russians hacked the election.
But what's it mean in his world?
I know, but it's a phrase that we always use, hacking the election.
Yeah.
And it's such a noob thing to say.
I know.
Because, like...
He cybered the election.
Does it mean that they penetrated state voting systems and downloaded databases of voter registration information?
Right.
Is that what it means? Does it mean compromising the DNC server?
I don't know.
What's the hacking? It's so weird.
I know.
Be guarded and safe, sparking an immediate backlash.
This is like the guy who robbed your house proposing a working group on burglary.
I love it. I don't know why Droopy Dog's always he's been back in the media for a couple of days now. But
Republicans as well. Senator Ben Sasse called it inexplicably bizarre.
that is some sass.
Some weighed in heavily on the morning show.
Hey.
Oh, good.
Is that Lindsay?
Yeah.
That's Lindsay.
Jeez, he almost looks sober, too.
It's not the dumbest idea I've ever heard, but it's pretty close.
Wait, did they voice over him?
Yeah, well, he looked bad.
He is literally the only
Yeah, they had to wait for him to come back where he wasn't making a bad face.
person I know of who has any doubt about where Russia attacked our election in 2016.
Okay, so Russia attacked. Okay, so when you attack the election, is that that probably represents like a multi-spectrum approach, right?
Oh, boy.
A multi-threat vector approach. I bet. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. What do you think of that? Huh? Hacking.
I'm facepalming right now.
Yeah, then there, of course, was disputes whether Trump and Putin agreed about hacking, but that really doesn't. None of that really matters.
I'd be hacking.
A lot of hacking. You know, Mr. Chase.
Yes, Chris.
It dawns on me that we are about to do the Club 33 mail sack, but it's kind of a special one because it's the last one for a couple of weeks.
That's what I said exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna be AFK or AFM away from microphone next week because I will be in Montana. And while I'm in Montana, I won't be doing the show because I don't have reliable connectivity over there.
Aww.
And so I can't do the clips, I can't do the shows, I can't do the Skype in because I get throttled really bad right now. I'm on an old AT&T thing.
Well, Chris, you better hope that Agent Pi does not roll back those protections because you're going to get throttled more in the future, buddy.
Oh man!
Congratulations!
All right. So,
hey, Club 33, how you guys doing? Did you guys have a good couple weeks? I've missed you. I know you've missed me. Welcome to my sack, everybody. Hey, we'd like to know what is on your mind this week. Clinton, Trump, news, fake and real. What's on your mind? So AT wrote into the show and he said, hey, if Russia wanted to help the Trump win, the Trump, what do you think motivated them? What did Hillary do to piss Vlad off so much? That's assuming you buy any of this new Trump, Russia, Manchurian candidate story that is exploding at the moment.
You know, the only thing I could think of to that degree, if there's say Russia was motivated to make Trump win, it would be, first of all, you have the statements of the candidates.
Yeah.
Where Clinton was very sort of aggressive in her comments about Russia.
Yeah.
Where Trump was sort of like, hey, he seems like a good guy. I like him. He likes me.
Yeah.
Then you have, and let him knock the hell out of ISIS. So then you also have the whole fact that the quote-unquote Islamic State in Syria is mostly backed by the CIA, which is causing a lot of problems for Russia's good buddy Assad. So there could be that motivation potentially to want to go for the candidate. They'd be less likely to do something stupid there, although that has not panned out.
Yeah.
But I actually think if you look at the history of the Clintons and their history of working on behalf of the Russian government, I would actually think if Putin is such the 40 chess master that everyone claims him to be, he would actually have perhaps wanted Hillary in office.
Yeah, I thought about that until the Don Jr. emails and seeing the connection with the pageant, not the attorney, but the big guy with the music star. And then I realized this is just one big business deal. This is just another big continuation.
Right.
And they saw Trump possibly knocking off Hillary, and they wanted to get on the winning side and to make their business dealings more profitable.
I don't know, though.
That's what I thought.
I don't know if the comments of the Russian government support and the Russian lawyer are credible in those emails. That's
true.
Because Rob is not a credible person.
But at the time, though, Don Jr. is so inept.
Right.
Or not inept, maybe it's not the right word.
I'm just going back to Russian government's motivation.
Yeah. To throw their
It would
support.
seem outwardly Trump would have been their chosen candidate because of his positive stance towards Russia.
Yeah.
But it would seem inwardly, if you look behind the scenes, they've made a lot of money thanks to Hillary.
Oh, yeah.
And her influence in the State Department.
Well, they played both sides to a point, and then they decided to probably go all in on one side. Next email comes in from Mickey T. Thanks, Mickey, for the show and being a part of it. I saw the tweets from President Trump calling Podesta disgraceful, and then saw Podesta's response to them. I don't understand how he, who obviously had knowledge of everything that really happened, can push a Russian hacking initiative or narrative when it is clearly not what happened. then tells him to make sure he mentions it to Putin. Trump asks Putin straight up. Putin's like, nah, big dog. And all the media all had to say about it was, well, maybe Putin and Russia are just playing the long game. Get a grip, media. By the way, thanks for the swag. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. New swag is out. Special discount for our patrons. And
yeah, look for that special post for Club 33.
And we just opened it up to other patrons as well. In fact, it might be, I didn't check with Ange. I mean, I did.
We're at 50 of 52 right now.
It was,
we have 2 spots available.
Okay, 2 spots?
As of right now.
Yeah.
2 spots.
Yeah. Yeah, so patrons, even if you're not in Club 33, you can still get a special discount on the new Unfilter mug. And then eventually...
that's not a Club 33 post, okay.
Well, there's both. Club 33 gets a special discount.
Ooh.
And
I saw that. Okay.
Patrons also get a discount.
Nice.
And then we're going to open up to the public as a way for people to maybe do like a one-off swag item if they just want to support the show but don't want to sign up for like monthly patron. So we'll be opening up to the public soon too. But we wanted to get all of the stuff fulfilled for the patrons first.
So I've had a couple people ask me, how do you get involved in the SAC? Let me tell you real quick. It's simple and easy. On the Wednesdays that we do a show, okay?
All right.
Very early morning Pacific time between 6 and 7 a.m., I will post to our Patreon page.
It's background.
Only for Club 33. You will see that post. You will reply to that post. And there you go. If you don't want me to mention your name, like you're concerned about, being a little bit more confidential, no worries. Just tell me send me a message in the post or whatever and say, please don't mention my name on the air, and I will not mention it.
Yeah, we're also going to be giving away some hashtag #ONancy stickers to people who sign up in the month of July. Patreon.com/Unfilter, because we're trying to get up to a new goal level to do Unfilter more than once a week. Patreon.com/Unfilter. That's where you go. That's where you go to support the show. But also, even if you don't want to become a patron, when YouTube permits, we are posting the entire live show over there as well, which you can just watch the completely unfiltered version of Unfilter. Although if you are just trying to get your vitamin dose of news, the downloaded version is going to be the quickest way to get the biggest headlines, and then you can stick around for the overtime if you like.
Very nice.
Also, one little piece of admin, like I said, gone next week.
Yep.
Gonna probably in the next couple of weeks think about the Unfilter subreddit again, so it could be coming soon.
Yep. I've already have some ideas, by the way.
Okay. So I'll reflect on that while I drive to Montana, so stay tuned for news on that. We also have an Unfilter Telegram group in the works right now.
Uh-oh.
So we'll have information on that.
Tread lightly.
And we have also the Unfilter IRC chat room. So if you go to irc.geekshed.net, and then you can go into the Unfilter chat room and hang out with the Unfilter folk over there. And thank you to all of our patrons at patreon.com/Unfilter for making it possible for us to do this all the time.
Very much.
Chase, sometimes when weed becomes legal...
State of emergency?
He does declare, not yet, but there's a problem. There's a real problem, and I feel like this is a problem. I thought about this when I traveled to Colorado, because I was like, so say I wasn't coming from a state where it was legal, and this was like a big novelty that there was pot shops. Where would if I buy pot in Colorado when I'm visiting, like if I've flown into town, where am I allowed to smoke it?
That's true.
If I fly into Seattle from out of town,
you can't go to a
from
bar.
Out of Washington.
You can't do it there.
Yeah, this is becoming a problem in a lot of places that legalize it, even up in Anchorage.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Vigil.
And I'm Emily Carlson.
Well, you can legally buy marijuana here in Anchorage, but tourists have nowhere to legally smoke it.
Tonight, the Anchorage Assembly is taking steps to try to change that. KTVA 11's Daniela Rivera is live in downtown Anchorage with those efforts. Daniela.
Joe and Emily, Chris Constance says he knows people are taking to our parks to consume marijuana because for many, there's no place else they can go to consume legally. Now tonight, the Assembly just approved a resolution he submitted asking the Marijuana Control Board to help them with a solution.
In the summertime, half of my clientele is easily tourists.
They're drawn to AK fireweed, a novelty for visitors from states where consuming marijuana is illegal. How often does someone say to you, I don't live here in Alaska, where can I smoke?
Every day, multiple times a day. I mean, we're on 4th Avenue. We're on Tourist Avenue.
General Manager Will Ingram has to tell them the only place they can legally consume marijuana in Alaska is on private property, with permission of the property owner. Not a likely option for most of them, but it doesn't stop them from shopping.
This is why you bring your RV. Actually,
Alaska.
Demerit is it Demerit in the chat room says edibles. What do you think of that? Is that I don't recommend edibles though. See, that's the problem.
No, because if you're not probably in a place, you've seen stories where people have freaked out, right?
Yeah, and when you're like, if you're a tourist and you're not from a place that has pot and you go for the edibles, you could be in for a bad time. And, you know, I see people recommending this on the news, too. It seems like a bad idea. Anyways, so yeah, the issue is tourists come in and they buy the pot and they got nowhere to go, but they're still buying the pot. So it's not like they're throwing it away.
Of them, but it doesn't stop them from shopping.
I've never had someone leave because they didn't have a safe place to smoke it.
So they're buying it anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
But we have a conundrum in the law that there's no place for them to go and smoke. You can't smoke in your hotel room, you can't smoke on the street, and they do end up smoking in our parks.
Downtown Anchorage Assemblymember Chris Constant wants to send a message to the Marijuana Control Board ahead of a potential second vote on on-site consumption Wednesday.
We need to make rational policy because we're stuck, and we have a bad situation here in some ways.
A resolution on Tuesday night's Assembly agenda does just that.
This is just a message from the Assembly that we would like you to look closely at this question.
Until something changes, Ingram can only control what happens inside AK Fireweed.
You can buy legal cannabis, and they're going to smoke it probably where they shouldn't, and I can't police that.
That resolution was approved this evening within just the last hour, 7-4. We also reached out to the Anchorage Downtown Partnership.
So the 7-4 means that they're going to look at places to make it legal for people to smoke out in public, away from people that don't want to have to smell it, which is going to be now the tricky game they have to walk, because there's going to be people that don't want to have to put up with it, you know. But if you don't, what happens is people go to parks and they smoke out people in the parks, or they go to the alleys and they smoke in the alleys, which makes it look seedy. So it is a problem. Just like it is with cigarette smoke. It's the same. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Or
alcohol for that matter, too.
Well, and I would imagine, you know, when you legalize it, you just double down on a problem if you haven't solved it already.
Right. And that's why I don't understand why they couldn't just loop in cannabis with alcohol establishments and say, and I understand the whole smoking aspect, I guess, but
if you're smoking, then, you know,
you have a garden area where it's allowed outside or
something.
something.
A different section like they used to do back in the day. Yeah. Nevada, you're talking about state of emergency.
Yeah, I was laughing because I heard about that when I got back to you. I was like, oh my God.
It's essentially a state of emergency over the lack of pot. So they legalized pot on July 1st, and it's been going well.
Less than 2 weeks after sales kicked off of recreational marijuana, Nevada is now making an emergency regulation because there's not enough pot. Stores in Nevada running out due to unanticipated demand. The regulation will allow more dispensaries to become licensed distributors, including liquor wholesalers.
There you go. Now, I told you they're going to make way more money than they expected.
See, at some point, the United States as a whole will have to just get in this because they're losing out on that sweet revenue.
Oh, yeah. And
then allow intrastate commerce, because right now, cannabis that's, say, grown in Colorado where they may have a surplus, they can't sell it to Nevada, they can't sell it to Washington State. It's all locked into that state.
It's also really awkward for people that, like, say, live on the Washington-Idaho border and people who, you know, live around Colorado, and now it's awkward.
Well, we've covered those stories, you know, those neighboring states, they want more money because of all that illegal weed crossing their borders.
There's going to be a point where they're just going to, it's like red light cameras, traffic stops. Local governments, they just can't resist. The money's too damn tempting. And Nevada is raking it in. I think they're already about to blow past their entire annual projected revenue.
Which we predicted on this show.
Jeez. Mr. Chase, since people may be departing, they may not stick around for the overtime, which is fine. We understand you're a veggies, high-protein kind of person.
Fair enough.
You don't want the pie.
I need to go to work it out.
Maybe they're going to take off, and they're going to miss you for the next couple of weeks. Where can they find you?
If people want to have some more Chase in their face, follow me on Twitter, @Nunes, Nunes. I also do a lot of game streaming over on Twitch, twitch.tv/GeekGamerTV. So if you're bored next week and you're wondering where the show is, come join me. I'll be doing some streaming. Now, Chris, you're going to be going to Montana, the Big Sky State. I assume that during your journey, you're going to be sharing some beautiful pictures, maybe some haikus, if you will.
It sounds so epic and dramatic.
Where can people find this
You never know. You could find some of that at Chris LAS on the Twitter, @ChrisLAS. Also, there's a network Twitter account you can follow.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's Jupiter Signal. There's a calendar for this show, when we're live, when we're doing it. You can kind of do the math and figure out when to expect an episode. jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. But if you don't want to do the math, just subscribe to the RSS feed.
Nice.
Then if we take a week off and then when we come back, you don't have to worry about any of it. It just shows up in your podcatcher of choice.
And also take this opportunity next week, instead of not having a show, to just enjoy the world.
Oh, I thought you were going to say reflect on a world with no Unfilter and then go to Patreon to make sure we never go away. Oh, what? Oh, no. Really, yeah. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Because, having all this politics in your face all the time.
I should say, though, producer Matt, he's still going to be clipping away.
I know he will.
So if something breaks, we'll have it.
You need to take a little break. Just a little break.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week. Although, you can stick around. Overtime's coming up. Just a little bit. Overtime.
We'll see you back here in...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Got to get it right this time.
You got to get it right.
Okay, in 2 weeks. Oh, no. The exaggerations of the show's death, well, were exaggerated. It's the overtime! Thank you to our 6 new subscribers over at patreon.com/unfilter. Thank you to David, Jose, Chris, Andrew, Ken, and Chad. You guys are helping us reach our goal to get to twice a week. We also have some new swag, discounts for all of our patrons, deep discount for our Club 33 patrons. We're trying out some new prototype stuff. Check out patreon.com/unfilter. We have so much to get into in the overtime. You remember now, those of you that are new, but for those of you who've been here a while, you remember, just a little recap. Overtime, we fit extra stuff in that we couldn't quite fit in the main show, stuff that would have detracted from the main discussion, or things that give you additional context about stories we covered, or new threads that we want to track right here in the overtime. And one of my favorite segments, we've been going now strong for a while, is the Oh Nancy segment. Grab your hashtag Oh Nancy stickers, and let's get into this one. Here's Nancy Pelosi reassuring all of us that Chuck Schumer and herself are going to be the voices for winning back Congress in 2018.
Your own agenda. And that's what we're about right now as we go forward with our, hopefully, a successful attempt to win the Congress. Same thing we did in 05 and 06. Republican president in the White House, Republican president in the White House. We're the voices, the Senate leader and I are the voices for winning those races in our House and the Senate.
No, you are not. I mean, you think you are, but see, that's the problem. That's why you keep losing.
And we're ready.
What do you think about the 18? Do you think the Democrats will be able to take the House back, or maybe the Senate?
Yeah, I think it's very possible. Yeah. No, I think the House is probably easier than the Senate.
Right.
But we want to win it both. We want to win governorships, and we want to state houses. We want to win. We want to have a very clear message about the Democrats, not mixed up in personality. Presidentials are more personality. Congressional are more on issues and what they mean to people in their lives.
So, in other words, they're not going to win elections until she's been kicked out and Schumer's been kicked out, because they feel like there's no reason for them to step aside and allow somebody else to speak for the party, to speak to the people, to set the agenda, the tone, the message, to raise the money. Until that changes, Chris's Red Book prediction is the Democrats keep losing. Of course, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can strike a message that really resonates with people. Like she said, a presidential election is much more about personalities versus the lower levels of government. That is true, but she's not helping her cause because she still seems to be completely out of touch with reality. I don't know if it's a health issue. I don't know if she's overworked, but it sure takes away her credibility every time that she calls Donald Trump President Bush by mistake.
Everything we have seen so far, though, with the president has been about tax cuts for the rich. In fact, affecting California very directly is the Affordable Care Act. President Bush has come out against that, as you know, and it is not even a health care bill.
As you know, President Bush came out against that, as you know.
Bush has come out against that.
Who's that? I'm sorry, who was that?
Care Act. President Bush has come out against that.
Oh, President Bush. Okay.
As you know, and it is not even a health care bill. The Republican bill is not even a health care bill. It's a tax bill disguised as a health care bill, and wreaking terrible damage on California because it attacks covered California, which is so successful. So he hasn't been our friend in California on that. He hasn't been our friend in California on climate.
The health care.
Nobody corrects her. Nobody says anything. She just continues on. She's completely unaware that she keeps calling the sitting president of the United States, the man that she's fighting tooth and nail to defeat. She keeps calling him Bush. What does that tell you? Is it dementia? Is it wouldn't matter who's in office, she'd be fighting like this? She skipped right over Obama. So it's obviously a Republican thing. It's like, that's the connection in her brain. At least in my mind. It's the same party, isn't it? We haven't seen Maxine much lately. She seems to be staying out of the limelight. I wonder if it's because she doesn't want people talking about this story.
Well, since we live in a world, excuse me,
You're excused.
where pro wrestling references are now the very same thing as violent threats, one wonders what to make of remarks that California Congresswoman and progressive hero Maxine Waters recently made about HUD Secretary Ben Carson. During a speech on Saturday in New Orleans, Waters said that when Carson appears before her congressional committee, quote, "I'm going to take his ass apart," excuse me. Quote, "Carson knows nothing about the mission of HUD," Waters continued. "He doesn't care about people in public housing. He believes that if you are poor, it is your fault, and he doesn't know the difference between an immigrant and a slave," whatever that means.
Wow.
Now, we've mocked Maxine Waters before on this show, but we should take her seriously on this subject. Congresswoman Waters is a confirmed expert on the question of housing, especially her own housing.
Oh?
Consider where she lives. In a 6,000 square foot, $4.3 million mansion in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Now, how'd she afford a place like that after having spent the last 40 years working in government? We'd hate to speculate. How does she keep getting reelected despite not living in her own congressional district? No clue there either. The district Waters actually represents in Congress has the second highest percentage of African American residents in the state of California. Now, the neighborhood where Waters actually lives is just 6% black, or as she might put it herself if she didn't live there, it's segregated, like 1950s level segregated. And as we mentioned, it's really, really rich. So how did Maxine Waters pull off a housing coup like that? Who knows, but it almost qualifies her to be HUD secretary herself.
It's a good line right there. I wonder if they know when they tease it out like that, but they just don't have the nuts to say it. How do you suppose, chat room? 4.3 million mansion. Somebody living in 280 square feet. That sounds pretty luxurious, I gotta say. At least I pay for my health care, though. One of the biggest twerps on television right now has got to be Joe Scarborough. He's just so self-serving. He's such a narcissist, and he's just loving all of the mileage he gets out of Donnie Trump, and it drives me crazy to watch him. So get your best cringe pants on and watch Scarborough just soak this attention up. It's gross. It's so gross. And the way he pretends like it's not a big deal, but of course he thinks it's a big deal because he's the one that created the story in the first place.
What exactly is the Republican Party willing to do? How far are they willing to go? How much of this country and our values are they willing to sell out?
Well, let's flip that around here for a second. I'm no conservative, so I'm just going to give it my best go here, but I'm also no liberal, so let me see here. How far is the Liberal Party willing to go? They got in behind an established candidate who sabotaged the populist candidate that the people wanted, the people of their own party. How far are the Liberals willing to go when they're willing to completely go into bed with the CIA so that way they can cover their asses on how badly they lost an election? How deeply will the Liberals destroy our company to drag our entire federal government through bogus Russia investigations. How seriously misguided are the liberals and their morals when they're willing to say anything to attack Donald Trump, even call him Bush? See, you can flip it around. You see how it's a fun game to play? Try it yourself.
What exactly is the Republican Party willing to do? How far are they willing to go? How much of this country and our values are they willing to sell out? But aren't you a Republican?
Like that, you think maybe that question was coming? Like maybe that was set up? Like maybe they had like a little pre-interview chat? Because if you don't, then you don't understand how these nighttime shows work.
Out. But aren't you a Republican? I am a Republican, but I'm not going to be a Republican anymore. I've got to become an independent.
If that man is a Republican, then I am a pregnant woman. It's just as simple as that. I mean, I know he ran as a Republican for a while. I bet he was a Republican at some point. But when he took a job at MSNBC, he was no longer a Republican.
Just that. Nothing more. It's just small news.
Now, of course, the woman who's fucking him thinks this is huge news. She thinks this is a big deal. Nobody else thinks this is a big deal except for the people that want it to be. And Joe, at some level, is aware of that. So he's going to try to play Mr. Humble, even though he created this story. He helps create the lineup for the show he's on right now. He had a pre-interview with Colbert to stage the entire thing. So now he pretends like it's a non-story.
That's big.
No.
You see how he... No.
That's big.
No, it's not.
I hate this man. What a disgusting narcissist. Also, he should get the Colbert guy that did his hair to do his hair for this show.
Small news. That's big.
No, it's not. I think a lot of Republicans are feeling the same way. I mean,
Still a conservative.
It would be like if I announced on a Mac podcast that I was dropping all Linux and was switching exclusively to iMac Pros or Apple hardware or iPads or something like that, and denounced open source and said, what is the Linux community doing? These guys are idiots with their mini distributions. They can't keep focused on one thing. How far are they willing to destroy the desktop? Why can't they get their act together? I'm switching to the Mac. Okay? So I go on a podcast and I say all of that. And then we come on Linux Unplugged the next day. And Wes says, so Chris, it's kind of a big deal that you're dropping Linux, huh? And then I say, no, it's not. That makes me a douchebag. That would make me a douchebag. He is a douchebag. This is a douche thing to do.
Nothing more. It's just small news. That's big.
No, it's not.
I mean, okay, all right. So anyways, we'll continue on. I mean, I can't believe he hasn't done this sooner, to be honest with you. It's kind of a little late coming, and it's a brilliant little piece of PR.
I think a lot of Republicans are feeling the same way. I mean,
Still a conservative.
You apologize for your party for so long, and you hope that Republicans, when they get into power, are going to balance the budget, are going to...
When's the last time they've done that? Answer me. Who the actually expects the Republicans to do that? When's the last time they did that?
Take care of entitlements as far as reforming entitlements.
That's exactly what Trump wants to do. Sounds like they're trying to do that.
Making sure that Medicare and Social Security is around.
That's actually, I think, more of a liberal platform thing.
You hope that they're going to push for education reform and give parents, all parents, an opportunity to let their kids go to the schools that they want them to go to.
What does that mean?
You hope that they're going to do the things that they promised to do. And...
Well, I would argue that they're attempting to destroy health care just like they promised to do. They're attempting to give tax cuts to the rich just like they promised to do. They're attempting to destroy net neutrality just like we knew they would. They're promising to bomb in Syria and Afghanistan just like they said they would. So far, pretty much living up to exactly the Republican platform as it is today. So what are you missing here, Joe?
You know, when George Bush became president of the United States and Republicans owned Washington, D.C., they doubled the national debt. $155 billion surplus.
And you said nothing.
Became $1 trillion deficit. They engaged in Wilsonian foreign policy, and they promised when they got in power again that things would change. It hasn't changed.
They didn't promise that, actually. They promised they would keep doing that.
And now...
A $20 trillion debt's going to become a $30 trillion debt.
Which Obama contributed a crap ton to.
They can't pass tax reform to make us more competitive. They can't do anything, and they're kowtowing to somebody who inexplicably shows them no loyalty whatsoever.
Now, I find this to be two possible things. Number one, it could be very positive, actually, overall, in totality. Or number two, it could be used to undermine Bernie Sanders. So let's go with the first one. Number one, this adds another loud voice to the independent party, which is that is probably a good thing given the current political climate. Having more legitimacy given to the independent party could be a good thing come 2018, but especially 2020. Sorry if you can hear the weed whacker in the background. They literally are just weed whacking behind the studio right now. Hopefully it's not too bad. Anyways, number two, though, this is the one I'm a little more worried about, is if they use it to sort of cast doubt upon Bernie Sanders via, well, look at the spread of the independent party. They're as bad as libertarians. You have the whole range from Joe Scarborough to Bernie Sanders, and you just don't know where to go. You don't know which one's your Pepsi and which one's your Coke, and it just leaves the poor voter so confused. So I could see that becoming a meme as well. So it's interesting to see where this goes. It does get more people saying the word independent party, though.
It shows them no loyalty whatsoever. I don't know how people continue to be supportive of this president or this party until they return to first principles.
Now, funny because it's like on the surface, you got to agree with everything he's saying, except for these things haven't bothered him since Bush Jr. was in office until it's Trump. This tells me it's more to do with their spat with Trump than it is actual Morning Joe's morals and principles. I mean, he is sitting on an MSNBC talk show, one of the largest morning liberal talk shows. And in reality, it's maybe more independence that we need because Americans are just frustrated. I think a portion, this is me guessing, but I think a portion of them elected Donald Trump because they wanted anybody but the establishment. Even if it meant breaking the damn place and draining the swamp, quote unquote. Or they wanted Bernie because they wanted anybody but Hillary or a Republican that just wanted more wars. They wanted somebody in there that was going to change things because a shit ton of them need their lives to improve. There's a lot of people out of work, and this is playing a big role in this populist movement.
So the founder of America Works writing an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal this week arguing that it's time to take decisive action to get able-bodied Americans off the couch. As of May of this year, 94.9 million Americans were not in the labor force. That includes those who may not want jobs, like students or retirees. 127.9 million people were either unemployed, part-time employed, or out of the labor force, and that number represents nearly 50% of working-age Americans. Charles Payne is the host of Making Money with Charles Payne on the Fox Business Network. Okay, if you dove deeper into this article, what you saw, the argument that the left always makes for when we see this low labor force participation that has been plaguing us. They say this is because of a demographic change in our country and that we have all these baby boomers retiring. This refutes this. It talks about young people, nearly 3/5 of non-working men receive disability. 41% of the non-disabled adults on Medicaid do not have a job. And it goes through the number of people who the labor force participation rate for men 25 to 54 working age is lower now than it was at the end of the Great Depression.
Yeah, and ironically, even though we have an older population, 55 plus, that participation rate has been climbing. I mean, go to a McDonald's or something, and you'll see, whoa, you know, someone that could perhaps be a grandparent or something. Here's the real story. We do have a crisis in this country, and we have a crisis where we are paying people not to work. It is just you make too much money and you are simply too comfortable and you do not have to go out there and work. And it's baffling all of the experts. At this very moment, there's 6 million job openings. People aren't even quitting jobs to go get those jobs. And we talk about skills gaps and those sort of things. All of that plays a role. But the fact is, two things I see. And the paying people not to work. Also, with younger men, there's a phenomena out there, and it's already happened in Japan. It began in Japan over 10 years ago. They call it the grass eater movement, where these young men simply do not want to work and would rather stay at home and play video games.
Oh. Oh, let's hear it again. That was good, right? Let's do it again.
where these young men simply do not want to work and would rather stay at home and play video games.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. Oh, I love it when they do that. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. There is truth that lies beneath, but what comes to the surface is Fox News propaganda, and it's, I guess, you make a black man say it and all of a sudden it's fine. I'm not exactly sure why they can just get away with saying crap like, well, the problem with the kids today is they just want to play video games. You know what? Can I collectively say, fuck you, dude? That is so ridiculous. That's like saying don't get an iPhone and pay for healthcare. This is the most insulting crap that comes out of their mouths. What you have here, I believe, is a multifaceted problem. Obviously, population changes and demographics play a part of it. But you also have a massive recession that we haven't actually recovered from in the way that matters to the middle class. Oh, sure, the banks have recovered and the insurance companies have recovered and the auto companies are doing better for sure. And different sectors are doing better. And of course, through quantitative easing, we've solved a lot of problems that were on the books. And what's everybody's problem? Well, none of that helped the middle class. None of that really did anything for us. In fact, I have less money than I ever had. I am now paying a ton of money for health insurance that I haven't used in years because I'm too busy working my ass off to just make my way. And I think that reflects a lot of people. And there's a good group of people out there that look at this and go, that is a scam. I am not wasting the best years of my life grinding myself away as a cog in somebody else's machine so that way I can pay rent or mortgage on a place that just forces me to go to work and afford it. The video games is a symptom of literally having nothing else to do and people looking for challenges and rewards and achievements when there's very left that is easily achievable for them. I'm not saying that's true for all gamers, but I'm saying this is a really large problem. And this guy with his little flower button and his crazy-ass bow tie, or tie, and his overblown white shirt is sitting here saying that it's the damn millennials' fault, and it's simply that, we have these entitlement programs that essentially pay their way. It's really one-sided analysis.
Men simply do not want to work and would rather stay at home and play video games. It sounds far-fetched, but it is absolutely not. A report out by the National Bureau of Economic Research just 2 days ago underscores this. It's absolutely amazing. I'll give you a key stat here. Recreational computer time is up 45%.
See, they pretend like that cause and causation are... There is not a causation and a cause here. There is, well, I guess there actually no, because I'm about to make the same sin. Well, let me give you my causation. A lot of people have free time on their hands, and video games are a cheap form of entertainment that doesn't cost gas. It doesn't mean you go out and spend $50 on a movie. You don't end up on a bar blowing a bunch of money on beer and eating a bunch of food that isn't good for you anyways. It's a cheap form of entertainment that keeps you from going crazy because there's nothing out there that fulfills you work-wise.
For this group, overall leisure time is up only 4%.
Oh.
They don't go to work. They stay at home and play video games.
Yeah.
Oh, and then they managed to take this depressing situation that many Americans find themselves in, where the only outlet they have to have goals, achievements, to have a social community that supports them and doesn't judge them, they ridicule them. And they pretend it's the cause and not the symptom. It's just horrible. And it's so obvious what they're doing. And this is why they don't have any credibility. I honestly, Token Ring, if I didn't do this, I would probably be one of them. And that's why I can totally understand it. I made a lot more money doing IT contracting. I, at times, could charge $135 to $145 if it was an emergency, an hour. And I worked all day long, every day. I don't know if I've ever shared actually how much money I've charged my clients. But you have to understand, I left because I found the work completely unfulfilling. And I would rather struggle and do something that I find creatively fulfilling, personally fulfilling, worth my time. I would rather struggle and do that work that I believe in then go fix people's Windows XP computers. I just really reached a point where I just can't. I don't care how much I'm charging these people because I would just keep raising the rates and they would just keep paying. New client, new price, no problem. Oh, okay. Well, I can't say no to that, can I? Except for it got to a point where it was starting to really affect my health. It was starting to affect my emotional stability. It was just something that I knew. Plus, and on top of all of that, I was podcasting still because I was doing this and podcasting. So I, at one point, legitimately had essentially 3 jobs. And we had kids, so 4 jobs. Something had to give, and I knew it couldn't be the podcasting. So it had to be the work, and that just meant life changes. And really now it's at a point where maybe financially I don't like sit here and make a bunch of money and can't really have much flexibility. But there are benefits to having a public platform, to having a large, awesome audience. So to me, it's a very fulfilling type of work. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else less fulfilling. And I just think at a certain point, people stop believing in the quote-unquote American dream that we've all been promised. If we just work real hard, we'll get ahead. And the harder you work, the further you get ahead. Because I've talked to a lot of people who did that for like their 20s. You know, they got out of school. They just immediately went to work. They got married. They got a house. They got kids, a couple of cars. Got a mortgage, couple car payments. Maybe you got like an extra loan based on the mortgage too, so that way you could buy new appliances. You know, people do these things. And then they really get in deep. And they go, well, holy shit. Why did I do this? Whose plan was I following? This wasn't my plan. This is just, I guess I was just kind of on autopilot. This is just what I was supposed to be doing. I was just doing what I was supposed to do. And then you realize that you're working your ass off, killing yourself, and you're in your 30s. I've talked to so many people when I'm traveling in the RV at other RV places. People our age. There's so many people out there that were like, geez, I just realized I was doing this for the wrong reasons, and I just had a big reevaluation of my life, and I made changes. Like, people, I think, are having midlife crises earlier because the American dream wears off earlier. Because it's not working for people, especially when you're paying thousands of dollars for car insurance and health insurance and house insurance and mortgage insurance. And then you're still paying out of pocket for things like dental and sometimes other obvious health things. Like for myself, I think I have a $5,000 deductible. In other words, I spend $5,000 of my own money out of pocket before my health insurance coverage kicks in. I can't remember if it's 5 or 2 because I haven't used it for years. Because I can't spend. That makes it immediately unreachable for me. Because I'll tell you what, if I had $5,000, you know what I would do is I'd go set up solar panels on my RV so that way I could power my house. That's what I would get a washer and dryer, for God's sakes, if I had $5,000. I would get a frickin' washer and dryer. That would change my life if I had $5,000. So if my deductible, it doesn't work. Who believes this crap anymore? Nobody believes it. It's all a lie. And then, once you even try to use the coverage, it's just horrible. So it's not video games that are causing people not to work. It's that the system's totally wrecked. It's perceivably corrupt from the outside. Like we can outwardly see how corrupt the system is, just as people that are outside the bubble. We can see how corrupt it is. So we can only imagine how corrupt it is internally, so we know that's just a hellhole, DC. We see the money wasted on the military. All of us see it. It's not like it's a hidden secret. It's not a secret that the U.S. has the largest military in the world. All of its citizens know that. So we know money's being wasted. We know it is intrinsically. You grow up as a U.S. citizen, you know that money is being wasted at unbelievable, almost incomprehensible levels. The conspiracy theorists, liberal, right-wing, middle of the road, doesn't matter your alignments. These are all truths that we hold together. We all hold these truths to be self-evident. So nobody's buying this American dream crap anymore. So unless you get a good job and you start getting some traction and you just stick with it, some people are staying employed. But there's a lot of people looking around going, it's not working for me. It doesn't work for me. I'm glad it works for them, but it's not working for me. And when you look at the jobs that are available, it's understandable. It is completely understandable. And until that problem is fixed, guess what? It's going to continue to get worse. Just like until Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff and those dirtbags are out of the Democratic Party, they're just going to continue to lose elections. The two might be connected.
The Pentagon, it seems, is increasing the level of secrecy around its nuclear weapons inspections, according to the Associated Press news agency. Safety and security reports had previously been made available to the public, but not now. The U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff say a new layer of secrecy is necessary.
We are comfortable with the secrecy. For as long as nuclear weapons exist, the U.S. will maintain a safe, secure and effective nuclear stockpile.
However, transparency campaigners say the move goes beyond U.S. national security concerns. They fear it's all about covering up incompetence. There have been a few lapses in the past. Here's a reminder of them.
Oh, I like these montages, but they don't work so well for audio, I realize. They have some clips, but you know what? Probably would be better just leave it in the supporter sync if you want. I think this whole thing about hiding our nukes, though, is not that surprising. Let's stay on the whole military thread, though. McCain got his blood pressure up. You got to be careful, McCain. And it was over something that Rex Tillerson, your Secretary of State and good friend, said about Syria. Now, he's been saying a lot of stuff about Syria, about maybe implying we should have a little more cooperation. Still been talking about a no-fly zone. Still likes the idea of a no-fly zone, which I would think McCain would like. But, you know, no equivocation. We never want to cooperate with Russia. It's inconceivable.
All about. Let me go back overseas. There you go. I want to ask you about Syria. Let's listen to something that Secretary of State Tillerson said about the Russians who have interests in Syria and the United States. Let's listen to the Secretary.
Man, for John McCain, somebody who has been in office for, I think, just a couple of years, he's kind of a new guy, he's an up-and-comer, he's really in an awkward position, because I got to imagine in his entire reign as emperor over the Senate, that he's never been this conflicted with his own party's president. He hates all of these guys.
By and large, our objectives are exactly the same.
Russia and the U.S.
How we get there, we each have a view. And maybe they've got the right approach and we've got the wrong approach.
Now, mind you, he never even said Russia. He never even said Russia. And there's some good reasons why he might have that opinion. But, oh, boy.
Do the Russians have the right approach?
You can't make that up. You can't make that up.
You can't make it up, guys.
These are the same people that use precision-guided weapons to strike hospitals in Aleppo.
Remember when we were doing that, though?
Where sick and wounded people are. This is just, you know,
How dare he suggest cooperation, McCain goes on to say. How dare he? Because, you know, those Russians, they strike hospitals and they're just sloppy. Those Russians are sloppy.
Up to 5,800 civilians may have been killed by Iraqi and U.S.-led coalition forces.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that? 5,805 civilians by U.S. and Iraqi. Oh, shit.
In the last 4 months during the battle for Mosul. That's the latest.
Just in 4 months.
Estimate from human rights organization Amnesty International.
You mean the ones that we quote all the time?
In its new report, the group says pro-government forces relied upon imprecise weapons during the liberation of West Mosul and ignored the growing number of civilian deaths.
Oh.
It also claims pro-Baghdad troops appear to have repeatedly violated international humanitarian law, something that may amount to war crimes.
Man, that sounds a little sloppy. And, you know, that report comes at a time when the Russians just sort of got a huge win potentially in Syria, which really kind of makes McCain's comments look extra ridiculous.
Welcome back. President Trump called and congratulated the Iraqi Prime Minister today on the liberation of Mosul by the security forces there, calling it a major milestone in the fight against ISIS. And there's also word today that the leader of ISIS may be dead. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says it has confirmed Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has been killed.
What?
But the top American commander of our fight against the terror network can't verify whether it's true.
Yeah, well, Russia's been making this claim for weeks, actually. They've been saying that they killed them in an airstrike back in May. So, being that the United States, as I mentioned earlier, does have the largest military on the planet with unbelievable resources, you got, of course, a lot of birds up in space, you got birds in the air, you got drones, and then 17 intelligence agencies at the apparatus of the U.S. government are ready to be used by the Pentagon in a moment's notice. So surely they were tracking the infamous Baghdadi. Surely they had constant watch on Baghdadi and knew where he was and watched the moment he was murdered. Surely the world's largest network of Five Eyes was someone in this network that shares information between all Five Eyes nations saw something.
I don't have a clue.
What?
Simple as that. So, don't know if he's alive. Don't know if he's dead. I don't know where he's alive. I don't know where his dead body is. I don't have a clue.
I don't know where he's alive. I don't know where his dead body is. What was that again? I got to hear that again because that just seems...
I don't have a clue.
Uh-huh.
Simple as that.
Okay.
So, don't know if he's alive.
Okay.
Don't know if he's dead. I don't know where he's alive. I don't know where his dead body is. I don't have a clue.
Russia claimed it killed al-Baghdadi in an airstrike near the Syrian city of Raqqa in May. I could listen to that Lieutenant General Stephen Townsend all day.
What? What kind? Is that that's sexist. That is a sexist. Anyways, so, here's McCain incensed at the idea that perhaps they should work together. Incensed. But yet, things have really changed since Russia entered over there. And now, potentially, they've killed Baghdadi. Well, I'm just saying. Just #saying. Remember we talked about James Comey's testimony and about how he copiously documented his conversations with Donald Trump in memos that he then distributed amongst the FBI. And when we talked about it, we asked, for a brief moment, are these leaks? There's no way James Comey would write classified information in these memos and then share them with the press, right? And we just assumed, no, he's savvy, he's a lawman, he knows that line. Well, maybe we weren't too far off with that question.
You can't just have this conversation as the FBI director with the President of the United States and then decide to go ahead and take those materials when you leave and give them to your buddy with the purpose of giving them to a reporter so that there is ultimately a special prosecutor. Does that smell right? It does not. There's a lot of smoke there.
Do you think he broke the law?
Potentially. I think there's a real potential. Now, it will in part depend on the content of those, but why are they not sharing with Congress? Why not just, if they're unclassified, why not just make them immediately available? Why is the special prosecutor having to hold on to these? I got to believe that there probably is some classified information.
Last point on this. There is a hearing tomorrow for James Comey's replacement. Guy by the name of Christopher Wray, age 50. Do you know him?
I do not know him. Heard great things, but I do not know him.
Do you know what questions senators will be driving at tomorrow during this hearing?
Look, they're going to talk about their ability to interact, how truthful will they be.
Actually, tomorrow is today in the land of Unfilter land. Here is a little bit from that nominee hearing.
Last quick question. Will you commit to informing this committee if you witness or learn of any efforts to interfere with the work of Special Counsel Mueller?
Assuming that I can do it legally and appropriately, absolutely. I'm very committed to supporting Director Mueller in the special counsel investigation in whatever way is appropriate for me to do that. I've worked closely with Director Mueller in my past government service. I view him as the consummate straight shooter and somebody I have enormous respect for, and I would be pleased to do what I can to support him in his mission.
So when he says that he's worked with Mueller in the past, it's interesting how he's worked with Mueller in the past. It's, I don't know, maybe he decided not to go into extra detail there, but he and Mueller were working together on the government's response to 9/11. And there's a great NPR report on it that I don't know if I've tagged for the show notes or not, because I think I might have heard it streaming. And in this NPR report, they talk about how he worked to help roll back a lot of citizens' privacy protections. and other things like that. So he's on the inside club, just like Mueller was, who also benefited from many years of extensions to his FBI director term. He stayed in office for quite a while after 9/11, through a couple of presidencies, and Christopher Wray here is one of the guys he worked with during 9/11. It's interesting, especially because of what their duties were.
What I'm asking is if you learn about any machinations to tamper with that.
Machinations? I love it.
That you let this committee know.
Understood.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a little awkward, wasn't it?
Thank you.
If you want to say more, I'm happy to hear.
Senator, I would consult with the appropriate officials. Anytime I'm talking to this committee, I would consult with the appropriate officials to make sure that I'm not jeopardizing investigation or anything like that. But I would consider an effort to tamper with Director Mueller's investigation to be unacceptable and inappropriate and would need to be dealt with very sternly and appropriately indeed.
Well, there you go. That's what she wants to hear. That's all she wants to hear. Now, there's a little bit of Trump classic trivia out there. Some people wonder, how much has Trump changed over the years? Some people think he's changed a lot. I kind of think he's kind of always been the same old guy. In fact, I found some interesting footage here where it's classic Donald Trump. This is from a 1990s CNN interview where he walks out on the interviewer.
People say something false, I attack those people. Because the news gets away with murder, the news media. They get away with murder. You're tough in terms of libel laws because the media is so protected, and it's ridiculous that they're so protected, but they can write virtually anything. The difference is, with me, at least they pay some price. And I think more people should have that attitude, and I think you'd find a lot more accurate reporting, including yours.
What was inaccurate so far?
I thought your demeanor was inaccurate.
Demeanor.
I thought that questions that you were posing to people in my organization were inaccurate and false and unfair.
Well, questions by definition can't be inaccurate.
Well,
I think the questions themselves were put in such a way that made them statements, and they became statements as opposed to questions, and I think that's not good reporting.
Such as?
It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think your viewers would be very interested in it.
It's interesting, isn't it? So they're talking about him going after reporters for fake news, essentially, and it gets more awkward. You think it's already awkward. It gets worse.
What we talked about yesterday. Those in...
By the way, he just looked over and just did a little, this guy right here. He's looking over at one of his staff members, probably like his scheduler or a handler of his. I believe it's one of his employees who you'll see a little bit later here when they zoom out.
No, I don't think I would be, but let's talk about what we talked about yesterday. Those in the financial community I'm talking about, and we talked about this on the phone, who have said, and this is them saying it, not me.
This is them? What do you mean by them? This is one or two people, and what about the positive people?
5 or 6, but the ones who said negative things, and
here we are.
Well, we've got to talk
back to the negative.
Back to the negative.
Back to the. You know what? Do this interview with somebody else.
Well, we talked about this yesterday on the phone. This is exactly what we talked about.
Do the interview with somebody else.
But we did a pre-interview, Donald, and I told you I was going to ask these questions. We did a pre-interview. This is how this always works. There's always a pre-interview, even for local news. For local news, there's a pre-interview.
Really? Yeah, you don't need this. Do it with somebody else. And have a good time with it. Because frankly,
he just set the lavalier microphone down on the table, and he says, here, do it with somebody else. Now, you can still kind of hear him because the mic still picks him up a little bit.
Yeah, you don't need this. Do it with somebody else. And have a good time with it. Because frankly, you're a very negative guy, and I think it's very unfair reporting. Good luck.
I disagree with you. Sorry you feel that way.
Okay, I'll see you.
There's nothing that we can discuss on the phone, Donald.
And then his gal just kind of shrugs. Well, that's Donald. That's Donald, I guess. So there you go. I don't blame either, though. Like, why give them the interview? If it doesn't go the way you want, they don't give them ammo. Let's play a little shift. This guy is the ranking member of the big investigation into the Russia meddling. This guy. This guy is the top dog. He's the Democrats' #1 man, and he's hoping to walk away with some serious party power after this entire investigation wraps up. This is really important for Schiff. There's a lot of moving pieces in his party, and if he nails this, he's set for life politically. So this is a very important investigation for Adam Schiff. So he's going to be up to date and current on everything, because this is one of the most important moments in his political career. It is the most important. It's not one of, it is. In fact, you should look at what Schiff really has done before this. It's sort of adorable. So that's why it gives me some pause when he can't even get the basic lingo right about critical aspects of the investigation.
The president also tweeted again about the DNC server. Here's what he said again this morning. Questions were asked about why the CIA and FBI had to ask the DNC 13 times for their server and were rejected, still don't have it. Can you clear this up, Congressman? Did the DNC actually refuse to turn over its server to the FBI during the 2016 election when they were hacked?
Now, okay, so, Schiff has to pretend like he is the unbiased investigator here. He's Woody the sheriff, the lawman, doing his Woody's Roundup investigation. And he can't help himself but demonstrate that he's a political hack. And before he answers the question, which the answer is awkward, it's, yeah, they didn't hand it over, he has to first take a little political jab.
First of all, Dana, I'm not sure what the president is saying there. Is he saying that questions were asked at the G20 about the DNC server? I find that hard to believe. But on the merits of it, this is one of the issues that we're looking into. Was there a request by the FBI for the DNC server? Was there reluctance by the DNC to give it over?
Comey has testified as such.
The only thing that we have seen publicly so far, and again, we still need to probe beyond this, is Director Comey's testimony that what they got was essentially...
Now, this is the part that my jaw dropped. Right here is the moment. This is not just like a detail, like, did you get Hillary's extra iPad? This is like 100% key to the entire Russia hacking investigation. The whole DNC server stuff is super critical to this. It's a linchpin of the entire story. So this is really something that he should be honed in on, because I literally can't think of maybe more than a few other things that could possibly be more important about this investigation.
Is Director Comey's testimony that what they got was essentially the blueprint of the server from a very credible cybersecurity firm that satisfy the FBI's needs. So I still want to test that.
A blueprint. Credible
cybersecurity firm that satisfy the FBI's needs. So I still want to test that testimony, but this is something we will get to the bottom of. But again, it doesn't excuse what the Russians did. You don't blame the victim for the hack, no matter what kind of security precautions the DNC took.
It doesn't excuse what the Russians did, past tense. Sounds like the investigators already reached a conclusion before the investigation's over, doesn't it?
But this is something we will get to the bottom of.
So he first starts with an attack on Trump. He briefly addresses the DNC answer with a kind of non-answer, even fumbles the description, a blueprint. What a moron. And then he goes back to a deferral to bring it back to Russia. This guy is a political hack in a suit with a toe face, like 10 says in the chat room. This guy's got a toe face, and he's sitting there essentially couching a non-answer with political attacks.
Something we will get to the bottom of. But again, it doesn't excuse what the Russians did. You don't blame the victim for the hack, no matter what.
And he's kind of making a rape reference right there. That is, you don't blame the victim. I think we all know where that comes from. That is low.
Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Another day, another installment In the Russian election soap opera, this one an unexpected plot twist. Earlier today, Donald Trump Jr. released an email exchange he had last summer with an English publicist named Ron Goldstone. Now, Goldstone had offered Trump a meeting with a Russian lawyer called Natalia Veselnitskaya. Pronounce that twice. He claimed she had incriminating information about Hillary Clinton's dealings with Russia. Now, Don Trump took the bait and met with Veselnitskaya some weeks later, though he complained later that she had nothing interesting to say during the meeting and instead just talked about Russian adoption law. Goldstone, meanwhile, emailed Trump Jr. to claim, without offering any evidence to support it, that the Russian government supported his father, Donald Trump's presidential campaign.
So after he does this rundown here, and it's not bad, and it goes on, and he makes some pretty funny points in there. He brings on Dilbert writer, what's the Dilbert writer's name, chat room? Scott Adams. He brings on, thank you. Yeah, he brings on Scott Adams to talk with him about it, and that was an interesting interview. Scott's a little dry. So I don't know. I could play it if you guys want to hear it. I think I still have it on here. I don't think I removed it. Yeah, I did. Yeah. If you guys want to hear it, I could play it for you. But he brings on Scott Adams, and they talk about the story. And, of course, Scott is going to have a pro-Trump stance, so that probably isn't too surprising.
Democrats keep hammering Donald Trump on Russia in the 2016 election, and their entire cable channels devoted to detailing every twist and turn of that story. But cartoonist Scott Adams says this is simply playing into the president's hands. It's good for him in the end. Scott Adams is the creator, of course, of the comic strip Dilbert, author of the book Win Bigly, which is coming out in October. He spent the last 2 years writing extensively and presciently about the persuasive style of Donald Trump, explaining why he seems to keep winning despite repeated setbacks. Scott Adams joins us tonight. Scott, thanks a lot for coming on. You are the king of counterintuition. Why is the Russia stuff good for Trump, do you think?
Well, look at the story arc so far. If you're on the left, especially if you were a Bernie supporter, you started out with, yay, Bernie's going to fix everything. Well, that didn't work out, but at least we have Hillary. And then that didn't work out, but at least we have this accusation that we accidentally somehow elected Hitler without noticing it, and we'll march in the streets, and that will get rid of him. But that sort of didn't work out because the president stopped doing anything that wasn't presidential. He just sort of did what presidents do. And so they had this Russian thing, and they were throwing everything at it, trying to get the, if there's enough smoke, there must be some fire there going, but it just seemed like it was mostly smoke. But until recently, it was sort of working a little bit. And then Tillerson did this incredible reframing, where he said after the G20, he said, we're going to focus on the future and moving forward. And what that did was it redefined the left, their opponents, as the zombie lawyers who were focusing on the past while the administration is working on fixing North Korea and ISIS and healthcare and all these important things, while the zombie lawyers are looking for maybe a family member had an error on some paperwork. So that's what they're reduced to is, yeah, I don't think you filled out that form right.
What's a zombie lawyer?
Well, you know, if you have enough lawyers and you can't stop them, there's just, you know, they're more being hired and they're more coming at you. It doesn't feel like they have a living purpose. It just feels like there's some force you can't stop, but they're not doing anything useful.
I'm laughing because, like most of our viewers, I think I have lived that scenario repeatedly. So the news today that Donald Trump Jr. had a meeting with a lawyer from Russia whose connections to the Kremlin are unclear, may not exist, I don't know, and they talked, or he thought they were going to talk about dirt on Hillary Clinton. It dominated the news today completely. Give us some perspective on that. Is that a big story or no?
So let me give you some context that ordinary people don't know, that celebrities, you know, people who do what you and I do know, and Don Trump Jr. knows. One is that we meet a lot of people. And if you ask me to fill out, you know, how many people do you know who were born in England in the last 20 years that you talked to? You know, the last 2 years, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? But the other thing is that the key to this story is a British publicist, I understand. Yes. Now, if ever there was anybody you could invent for a movie who was supposed to be the least credible person you could ever concoct
that is true.
in your life, it would be, how about a British publicist? How about that? Now, Now, if a regular person hears from a publicist, hey, we got this thing going, they probably think, well, there's something to it. If you're Don Jr. and you live in this world and a British publicist says, I got somebody to talk to, the only thing you really think of is, well, I'll find out what they have to say, because everything that this guy said, not so credible, right? So I can't imagine that he was going into the meeting thinking that what the publicist told him was actually accurate, because it would be the first time a publicist ever said something accurate, because it's not their job. Their job is to exaggerate.
All right, there you go. All right, so we got to wrap up the overtime. I got to get out of here. I got more stuff, as always, in the show notes. There is a funny Chris Christie confrontation. I'll just play a moment of it.
Governor, next time you want to sit on a beach that is closed to the entire world except you, you put your fat in a car and go to one that's open to all your constituents.
Well, you know,
not just you and yours.
Interesting, Mike. You know what?
What's that, Gov?
You know, Mike, I love getting calls from communists in Montclair.
Communists in Montclair.
You know,
you're a bully, Gov. And I don't like bullies.
Oh, wow. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? You might have also heard, it was kind of trending on YouTube for a couple of days even, that Kellyanne Conway went on the Como show, the morning CNN Como show, and it was like a 38-minute or 32-minute, I can't remember, debate, essentially. I think she was only supposed to be on there for one segment, and they just ran and ran and ran. And so there's a lot to take away, but essentially, at the end of the day, nothing new. So I just got some of the best bits for you.
Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president, joining us now.
Did CNN say he wasn't going to mention it all, or didn't they? Oh, they did. Aren't you the least bit reluctant, if not embarrassed, that you now talk about Russia more than you talk about America?
Kellyanne, this matters.
I think America matters.
Russia.
Keep on saying opposition to research the way you guys constantly vomit words like collusion. I frankly think it was more punditry than reporting. I admire your moxie sitting there with the CNN Chiron right near you talking about credibility issues.
It's not supposed to be an argument. So unnamed sources are okay for you on Comey, but not okay for you anywhere else, huh?
I didn't say that. I was actually there. Excuse me. You don't know what I care about. Didn't you feel the least bit embarrassed as an American?
I don't even know what that means. I don't understand why you believe that bashing CNN is going to help.
Russia? I'm not bashing CNN. I'm not here to bash CNN. I don't do that. You don't want to cover that.
It's just not true.
You don't want to cover the tangible thing.
Premise.
It's not true.
I test power and I take the consequences every damn day.
Know where I went to find damaging negative information about Hillary Clinton? Hillary Clinton.
The junior says he met with her because she had bad information on Clinton.
Donald Trump.
Where's your infrastructure plan? Where's your tax policy plan? As soon as they come out, we'll discuss them.
You're kidding, right? The stock market loves this president.
And we reported it.
The economy is humming.
I don't know, because he doesn't talk about them, and you guys don't come on to talk about it.
Yes, he did.
Your people say you have to go, by the way. So you make sure that the White House press office doesn't yell at me.
Chris, stop being so sensitive. Tell whatever 6 versus 1 anti-Trump panel we're sorry that...
It just keeps going. It just keeps going. It's still going. Yeah, it's still going. Yeah, oh yeah, it's still going. In fact, it goes for about another 40 seconds if you want to see the entire clip in the supporters sync. Thank you to our patrons for making the overtime possible, for keeping us on the air. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider contributing to the community at unfilter.reddit.com. In the future, it will be back, so stay tuned, because we will need a whole new community over there. We also have Telegram groups in the works. We've got the Unfilter chat room, which are active right now. All that stuff is in the works. Plus, we have that limited time swag. You can find out more for everybody at patreon.com/unfilter. For everybody. That's for everybody. Thanks for joining us.